Hello, folks, and welcome to our webinar, Dependency Injection in Kotlin Multiplatform Mobile Projects. My name is Pamela Hill, and I'm from JetBrains. I'll be your host for tonight. So this is our fourth webinar in the series to celebrate the beta release of Kotlin Multiplatform Mobile. And if it's your first webinar, welcome. If it's not your first webinar, welcome back. So as you know, sometimes we start our webinars with just a YouTube poll just for fun. And I would like to know, is this your first webinar or have you attended some other webinars of ours before? And Kate will be running the YouTube webinar poll in the background. So you can just enter everything in the poll on the comment section. So let's see. I'm just waiting for some of the results to come through. It looks like we have a lot of people coming for all three, but a lot of people saying, most people, this is their first webinar. Welcome. We're so happy that you're here. It's almost like sort of the results are still coming in, but for most people, it seems to be like it's their first webinar. Well, so very, very welcome. And our second poll for tonight is just for fun. It's, what snack are you having while watching the webinar? Is it maybe something sweet, something salty, or must I stop because I'm making you hungry? So you can just drop your answer in the poll on the comment section. Of course, you're also welcome to say hello in the channel. Don't be shy. So a lot of people saying, I must stop making them hungry. I wish I could have some popcorn right now. Yes, everyone's saying I must stop making them hungry. I hope it's not breakfast time for everyone and I'm making them feel all ill because I'm talking about popcorn and lollipops. But anyway, I'd like to introduce Anna Zharkova to you. She's a Kotlin expert from UseTech, and she'll be our webinar speaker for tonight. Hi, Anne. Unfortunately, no snacks for us tonight. Hi, Anna. So let's get started with the webinar. Remember, folks, to please drop your questions for Anna in the comment section for her to answer a little bit later. And Anna, over to you.
Thank you very much, Pamela. So let's begin. I'm ready. And let's begin our talk about dependency injection in Kotlin Multiplatform projects. So at first, let's see, we will have a small sample application. It is a Kotlin Multiplatform application that allows a user to read some newsfeed, and it has common business logic written with Kotlin Multiplatform. So it has a common network written with K2. It uses coroutines for common concurrency, and for common architecture, it uses a model view presenter solution, and it supports both iOS and Android. When we speak about such native application, we know how to bind our components. For example, we have our native view, native presenter, native business logic, and we put them together and use in our own way. But when we speak about Kotlin Multiplatform, there are several approaches to connect our components. For example, to make our work easy, we could specify a separated iOS presenter, Android presenter, when we speak about model view presenter architecture, separated views, and of course, it could be also separated network services when we haven't used some common solution. And also, we could use some common business logic and connect it to our native application separately, but it will not provide us the common experience of maximum shared common logic that allows to be used in Kotlin Multiplatform application. So for such case, we need to use common presenter, common network service, and common API services. And to connect them correctly and to bound this with our native applications, we need to use dependency injection as the most sophisticated solution in such case. Dependency injection is just a simple architecture pattern that is used to create and inject some kind of dependencies. You create some kind of objects and put their instances as arguments of constructors, or just set them as properties into other objects. So this is the creating of connection between these objects. And also dependency injection is about storing and keeping the instances of such components correctly. And there is several approaches to make dependency injection solution. The first one is to make it manually with simple patterns. The second one is to make a ready-made library. Just take one existing solution and put it in your application, and to make your own solution. And it could be also some kind of ready-made library, but with some tweaks. When we speak about dependency injection created manually, we could start from service locator. Service locator is not dependency injection at all. It's just a pattern that could be used to create some kind of storage that could be used in dependency injection. This is the object that has a collection of 4 instances of several services, and you could add or resolve some kind of services by this type. And the main purpose of this object is just to keep and resolve the service. Of course, it could be used to create some instances if there are any rules or conditions for this, but main purpose of service locator is to keep and resolve the instances. Let's compare dependency injection and service locator, because in many articles, in many meetups, it is just a sharp point when we discuss about dependency injection. Dependency injection is approach to deliver dependencies by injection as parameters to constructors or property setters. Service locator just a container to hold or resolve existing samples of types, and the last purpose is to also create new instances. Dependency injection container, it is the container for dependency injection pattern. It could be based on service locator, but also it could use some own business logic. And this container is rather to create new instances than to hold them. Of course, if there are some rules how the instance should be kept, it could be held on the container, but mainly it's to create new instances. There is a sample of dependency injection manual by using some kind of lazy factory. On this sample, there is some kind of singleton, and this singleton is used to create the instances lazily. And you can see that for the instance of new service, the dependency of network client is injected, and it is resolved just from this singleton. So this is our base point. Let's take a look how such kind of pattern could be used in our code. This is my sample project. I have created the start project for manual dependency injection, and of course it is also the projects for some kind of ready-made solution we will show to you today. So let's take a look. Here is my application. It is Android application based on network on some kind of presenter. It is a common presenter in my code. And I will show you this. So this is my network client based on K2, and this is the service that uses network client as a dependency, and this is the news presenter that was injected into news activity and view controller for iOS. So the new service retrieved here lazily from dependency injection container. And this is the result of the work. So, and as you can see, here is our small container. And also there is a sample of service locator, but it is not interesting. So, and how it is connected with our native application, just take a look here. And this is our activity, and you can see that presenter is created lazily, and same was made for view controller in my iOS application. So, and you can see that it works same as Android application. So because it uses one business logic, and I like this in Kotlin Multiplatform, the maximum experience of sharing and providing same business logic for several targets. And you have already watched a webinar about how to create common data layer for such application. So this is how to use a manual dependency injection solution. But it is not too sophisticated, it's not too convenient to use, because in this case I have just several instances, several services. And in case when I will create some kind of large application with multiple models, multiple activities or view controllers, I would like to make something more comfortable to use. So in case of this, let's return to our slides. We need to create some kind of sophisticated dependency injection solution, and in this case there will be dependency injection common for our common part, and it could be also some kind of native dependency injection solution for iOS and for Android to connect these parts convenient. And of course in my case there is a model view presenter pattern. It is easy to connect presenter with view, but in case I would like to switch into Viper or Clean Arc, I need something more convenient to configure my models. So now let's focus about dependency injection solution as a way to connect all these parts. For Android, we could use Dagger and Hilt as the most popular native solutions provided by Google. So, this is good for Android native application. Of course, Dagger is not only by Google. I know the authors of Dagger, but it is recommended by Google to use with Android application. So, it is good for Android, but it's not good for common part, because Dagger and Hilt use JVM. And when we speak about Kotlin Multiplatform application for common part, it uses different versions of Kotlin for every target. And for iOS, we use Kotlin Native, and Kotlin Native is not supported with JVM, so it is not applicable. And of course, there is some really questionable point that cat that is used for annotation, it's also only for JVM, it's not for Kotlin Native. So at this point, Dagger and Hilt is not for common part. For iOS application, we could use different solutions. If we create application based on UIKit, it could be simple to inject. But in case when we use Swift UI, we could use property wrappers and something just like service locator to retrieve our instances and dependencies. And of course, such combination property wrappers and service locator could be also used for simple UIKit application. And the question is, what we need to use for common part. Not to inject, neither Dagger and Hilt is not good for common part and could be used only for native iOS and Android applications. And let's take a look what we'll be doing with dependency injection in our common main part. Our common model will be will connect will contain only several data layers. So it will be common data layer from network service and storage service, and there could be also several specified services, and each of these specified service could use as network service as storage service. And for presentation layer, or for common architectural business logic, it is business logic for our screens. There could be several architecture solution or intermediators. It could be view model as intermediator or presenter or interactor. That depends on our architecture pattern. And all these intermediators could use several services. And that means that every service is not bound is bound not only for one intermediator. It could be bounded to multiple ones. And that means that we should pay several attention to keep only one instance for every service to prevent the duplication of the requests or prevent the loss of some data when we will recreate the service and there will be parallel requests and some retrieved data could be lost. And every intermediator should be presented only not only in one but in multiple, because it should be created every time we return to our screen or create our screen. So for view model, presenter, interactor, there should be multiple instances, and for services there should be only one instance at the moment. And of course, because we share network service and storage service, they also and have to be on one instance. Of course, we could create singleton for every service that should be only in one instance, but it is not good pattern in this case. Of course, there is every time one singleton or several singletons on your project, but when it will be the normal pattern to have one instance for every services, that's not good case. So that's the time to select and apply some kind of dependency injection, and we will focus on what should be implemented on good dependency injection for common Kotlin Multiplatform part. Of course, it had to be thread safe. And thanks to Kotlin version 1.7.20, we shouldn't take care about thread safe because everything is thread safe already. Of course, it should support memory management with weak reference. Kotlin version 1.7.20 already support really nice memory management under the hood, and it's really cool memory management, not only for Android but for Kotlin native and iOS. But for weak references, we have to use some tweaks because not everything is could be implemented in every framework by default. And in perfect solution, there should be different scopes and different containers. And of course, it should support singleton because we have already mentioned that in some cases we need to have only one instance. And of course, if it is Kotlin Multiplatform, it should be supported for both iOS and Android solutions. And now let's take a look at two ready-made solutions. This is Coin and Codeine, two nice libraries that already support Kotlin Multiplatform common part and dependency injection for both iOS and Android. And now let's begin from Codeine. I have prepared I have prepared already a reference to Kotlin GitHub. By this reference, you can find a lot of documentation about dependency injection, and we will mention only several aspects of Kotlin dependency injection, how it works with Kotlin Multiplatform, and how it could be applied in our application. And of course, it's not all. There is a lot different things, but for our sample, it will be enough. So let's turn into our slides and let's speak about Kotlin closely. So this solution supports SGVM and Kotlin native, and of course, it could be applied into common part of Kotlin Multiplatform. Several years ago, it supported only GVM, and of course, it could be applied at Kotlin Multiplatform, but not for Kotlin native. So, and now it's a really cool solution, and of course, it supports Kotlin version 1.7.20. To make our work more sophisticated and convenient, it supports DSL syntaxes. And what is really nice, everything is lazy by default. So you shouldn't care that all the instances of every service intermediator or other component you have provided into your dependency injection solution will be created just in a moment. And for Android, it supported scopes and context, so it could be also a solution for big reference, but only for Android. So I think that it is a point for development of this framework. But now let's take a look how to apply Kotlin into our application. So at first, what we will do, we will add our dependency. Now, next, we will set up our models. And then we will add it into Android. We will connect our solution with Android and then connect it with iOS. So let's begin from setup our Kotlin and let's turn to our Android Studio. So there is our manual dependency injection project. And now let's switch into our start point for Kotlin. So it is our start project, and there's just a mention what we have previously done with our dependency injection solution. And there is clear solution. I will show you that everything is not connected. So there is no net use service in our presenter. As you can see, our presenter is not connected to our Android or iOS application. And of course, it is mentioning of and references of network client in our news services, but just dependency. So nothing is not connected to any part. So at first, let's add our dependency. So I have made some template and I will add the reference to Kotlin into our build Gradle script in common way part and just click on sync. So, and while we are waiting, what we will do at first. So at first, let's return to our slides. We need to create such kind of factory, and in this factory we will declare all our models. So as you can see, Kotlin supported different models. And you could provide different services in different models, separated models, and then we will create the main point to access dependency injection data in Kotlin. And then I will show you how to get access to different instances we have already created. So as you can see, Kotlin supports different versions how to connect your service and then retrieve it. For example, if you would like to get only one instance per model, there could be a bind singleton command. And there are also different versions of binding singleton. And to create to bind the instance of the object that had to be retrieved with new instance every time, there is bind provider command. So one instance bind singleton, multiple instances, and new instance every time bind provider. So and to retrieve already created and existed dependency, use just an instance, and everything will be injected in on your service. Now let's return into our application. Let's check that our dependency is already installed. So there is a lot of different libraries, and now let's create our dependency injection model. So there is our solution for manual, and now let's create a class. And on this class, we will create our declaration of dependency injection models, and also there will be some points for our future factory. So let's call this code I'm sorry. And now we have to create two models because our services will be existed in one model and our presenter will be provided from another one. Let's create the service model. So this is our model, and we will create the service model. I will mention it correctly. And now let's DI, and let's select the correct package, and let's create a model, and here we will provide the name. Of course, there could be several other parameters. For example, if you would like to add some prefix to be used in this point, or allow silently override, but in this case we need to provide only the name of our model. I will call this service. And on this one, I will provide bind singleton my network client with this factory to create new instance. And I will bind a singleton my news service with provided instance of network client. At first, before we will add the model for our presenter, let's take a look at this command. As you can see, this is the command that provides you lazy delegate for some instance, and also it is generic ifit. So there will be some points later, but now let's remember this is generic and lazy property. Now let's add another one model. I will call this presenter model, and select correct name of package, and let's name this presenters. I will rename it to services to make it name in one style, and I will bind provider. So, and this is my news presenter implementation. At this point, this is enough. And now I will create the variable, the property to my DI, just like this. And in this DI builder, I will import my models. At first, service model, and then I will import my presenter model. So we have just configured the dependency injection models for our Kotlin. But now let's think. We need to bind our presenter with our service. How we could do this? Our presenter could use dependency injection Kotlin in several ways. At first, let's do this. We could just implement here DI aware, and then we need to re-implement and override the reference to DI from Kotlin. And now we need to provide here the reference to our dependency injection model. We could just create it just like this and use it just like this with the reference to DI. But now let's take a look. Our presenter will be created several times. And when we will use this with a creation, there could be something not good. So on this point, we need to create singleton. Every time when there is the problem of reduplication, create singleton. So let's create some kind of dependency injection factory, and this factory will guarantee us that we will have only one instance for Kotlin DI, and all our models will not be recreated. So this is our DI factory singleton, and on this one we will set up our DI property, and this property could also be provided just like this. On this point, it is safe. And now let's return to our presenter, and we could remove this. And now we could use our dependency from DI just like this. Let's do this lazily. So this will be our new service, and let's create the instance. Just like this. So let's provide the type, and everything will be created at the moment. Let's uncomment our code. And now let's take a look how to connect our dependency injection presenter into our activity. Let's go here. So at first, we could, of course, provide it by lazy property and create it just in our activity as we have used before when we used a manual dependency injection solution. But we have provided our presenter in our Kotlin DI. So on this point, we need to get our dependency injection presenter from our factory. It could be done just like this. So this is our use presenter. Use presenter, I will name this correctly. Because we have provided the name and the type of our presenter by using the class, not a interface, we need to use here the type class. And of course, also we could use it, our DI factory and DI instance. So that seems we haven't provided the way to get our dependency injections, our presenter from the point. Let's think how we could retrieve our presenter at the moment. So this is our DI, and there is no way to use instance here. Why this happened? Because we haven't provided Kotlin DI into our Android application. We have connected this library only in our common model of our Kotlim Multiplatform application. So on this point, there should be some other way to get our dependency. I don't want to add our Kotlin in our Android application because I would like to show you how to use Kotlin in common model only. And as you can see, there is no way to connect Kotlin library directly in iOS application. It could be used only from our shared model and be provided only for share model. So on this point, let's go to our Kotlin DI, and let's think how we could provide our presenter to be used in our Android and iOS application. We could use some kind of dummy solution and provide the instance of our presenter just from our DI factory, just like this. So on this point, we have the reference to Kotlin DI. I'm sorry. So just provide the reference to our presenter in this factory by using the I instance and providing, of course, the types. So I don't know why it make me to put the type of the class, but then it shows me that I could remove this from the braces. So now this is dummy solution to provide the I factory, and we could connect it to our news activity just like this. So there is our presenter. We would also on this point use our interface, and now it could be also provided lazily from our DI factory, just like this. So on this point we have our presenter, and now let's add our code. Of course, we could also attach here our view, because in another point we will not get the result to our view. So attach it just like this news activity, and now let's start our application. Let's run it in our emulator and check that everything works okay. So it is already started, and we have received the same content and the same behavior of application we was expected and was already implemented in our dependency injection manual solution. So dummy solution works. Now let's use it in our iOS application. Let's open it. Every time when you select the solution to your Kotlin column main part, you have to think about is this solution good for my iOS application, because another point it is only Android solution. So we understand that on this case we have no access to Kotlin library. It is only for common part and for our Android application if we will provide it directly. And on this point we have to use such kind of helpers as our factory. And now let's add our presenter lazily from this DI factory. Use presenter, and now let's create our presenter on iOS style. So we use DI factory, shared, and presenter. So on this dummy solution everything works. Now let's attach our view and return our presenter, and of course do not forget to call here loading our news, and do not forget braces. Now let's run our application and let's see what's going on. Everything works okay. So this dummy solution works, but I think it's not good for any good application, and we should provide something more convenient to work with our dependency injection solution. Let's think what should be. Of course, it could be some kind of factory. Let's return to our Kotlin DI, and now let's add our factory. So at first, oh, I have forgotten one solution. Let's see if we have here. So now it's other application. What? Well, this is our Kotlin iOS application. Let's see if we have here an access to our DI, and what will happen if we will connect it just directly. So let's use this, and this is our DI factory, and shared and DI. So as you can see, it is not available. Why it is not available? Because this is DI, it is an access to lazy delegated properties, and lazy delegated properties is not supported in iOS. So there is no way to connect lazy delegated properties. It's only Android and Kotlin stuff. So this is not solution. Let's uncomment this and remove this. And let's return to our code and let's think about our solution with resolving and some kind of factory. At first, as we cannot use lazy delegated properties, let's add some property in our DI factory to get our DI Kotlin directly. So it could be retrieved just like this, DI direct. And on this point, let's save this code, and now let's rebuild our application. On this point, it seems we could get our instance directly. Let's change this and shared DI direct. And now let's call instance. This is not applicable because here we need to provide Kotlin type token, and there is no way to get it from iOS. So let's focus on factory. This was last attempt to get DI Kotlin directly without any other solutions. Let's make a wrapper. Will be a wrapper function. So it will be function resolve, and it will be, of course, generic function. And on this function, we will retrieve turn DI direct, and here instance by the type. So looks nice, but this red line shows us that we have forgotten one moment, that it supports inline reifed, and our T should be derived as any. And now everything okay. And let's add this factory into our news activity instead of this dummy solution I don't like. And DI factory resolve as news presenter implementation. And what's going on? So this shows that is not solution. So let's change it to this, and DI factory, and resolve our type news presenter implementation. And of course, let's show that it's optional. Yes, the problem was that it is optional, and of course it could be used as an optional. So let's change it into lazy property to make it easy also to attach our view. So let's change our code and now apply this news activity. So of course it is all optional. Should forget about this mark. So let's run our application again and quickly, we have received everything. So there is no caching on application. Everything works okay. Perfect. Let's focus if this solution could be used for our iOS. At first, let's command everything and just rebuild our application. At first, clean build folder, of course, replace, and now rebuild. And now let's add our presenter resolved from our code. So it's resolved as any, and let's mention it as news presenter implementation. It is not good with some kind of intelligence input in Xcode 14, so do not mention it. So, and now let's, of course, it will be some kind of optional. It is optional, and again, it is optional. And now let's rerun our application and let's think what's going on. At first point, that was okay and everything built okay. But when we have built our application, there is some problem. And as you can see, it is problem with unsupported call of inline function. And of course, generics for iOS supported in Kotlin Multiplatform, and this could be used in Kotlin Native. But when you switch from Kotlin Native common part to your native application, there is some problem with interrupting your Swift types into Kotlin types, even when these types are known for Kotlin Multiplatform. And on this point, some information could be lost. So there could be some problem with converting and casting from any to your Swift type. And there is also one interesting moment. And we will focus on this moment just a bit later. And if you will jump into your sources from your iOS native application, you will notice that even your classes, your files has one name on your iOS side. In common main part, for common main part, there is prefix with the name of your shared model. So in my case, my model is called shared. So it is shared prefix for every type, and there is some strange behavior to changing the names of Kotlin types to be supported in Objective-C with interrupt. So this is the problem with supporting inline ifit with Swift types. On some next versions of Kotlin Native, the interrupt between iOS Objective-C Swift will be more smoothly, but at this point, to use generics just like this is not our solution. So let's jump into our Android solution and let's think. So we could use generics, but only on this part. So that means we need to provide some kind of solution as not generic. And what it could be? This could be some kind of factory. Let's create some kind of our factory, and what this could be a factory. The presenter depends on view and on this type. So that means that we could add here a configurator to be used to create new screens with whole stuff. So let's create config package here. And now let's add here our configurator. So let's call this class just configurator. And at first, I will create some interface. It will be interface configurator. And on this interface, I will return I will create presenter, and to avoid using generics, I will use some common types, common classes, or common protocols, common interfaces to avoid inline reifed problems in iOS side. So I will provide here base view as the type to be used to recognize what type of presenter I need to create. And this will return to me presenter. It is a base protocol for my presenters, bridge interface. Interfaces are called in iOS world protocols. So this is our configurator, and now let's create the class for our news configurator. Let's give this the name in Kotlin style, configurator, and let's create presenter here. So now, and on this point, I think I could remove this argument. I will use it later in the factory for configurators. I added here only to show you that this is the mark to recognize, to be used for recognition our presenters. So let's remove this parameter from the function, and let's return here our news presenter implementation. And of course, on this point, we could also add something else. But on this point, on this case, we just implement it easily. So now let's create the configurator factory, config factory. And this config factory will use base view to recognize the type of our presenter. And this will return us presenter. It will be optional parameter. If our view is a news view, we will use another interface to recognize our type. We will return our news configurator and now create our presenter. And if there is no existed any interesting for our types, we will return null. So this is our configuration factory. Let's apply it in our activity instead of DI factory. So remove this one, and of course our presenter could be created just like this. But do not forget, we use dependency injection, and this is why here we use the iFactory resolve our news presenter implementation as news presenter implementation. So let's add here, it is optional, and remove this one. And so at this point, everything correct, because we use our DI factory in our configurator for our presenter, and now we use our configuration factory to create config factory, create with this, and I have lost on my braces. So let's remove this, and by lazy we use our config factory and create with this, and now it show us, just a moment, factory create this as news presenter. Do not forget to make some casting, because we return the basic type, and just turn it into lazy. I like lazy, that's comfortable and convenient, and put it on our braces and attach our view. So on this point, everything is correct. And of course, if you care about memory management, you shouldn't attach your view just here. You need to attach on your resume and do detach on your pause method. But in this case, it's simple solution. Yes, we care about a nice dependency injection solution, but doesn't care about memory management while attaching presented to our view. So, and everything works okay. And everything works okay every time with Android. And now let's return to our iOS and clean and rebuild. And it's rebuilding. And now let's change our DI factory call to our configurator. Config factory, shared, and create with self. And of course, mention that it is our news presenter implementation. And now let's start our project again. Let's run it. And at this point, everything works okay, and we received everything fast and smooth. So, and now we have created some common solution with Kotlin. Let's return to our slides and let's jump to our summarize. So, this was section about Kotlin. What could be mentioned with comparing Kotlin with our perfect and some our dreamy perfect one, ideal dependency injection solution? So it is thread safe and supports memory management. Unfortunately, weak reference and scopes at the moment are supported only for Android. Of course, we could provide our own solution when we create instance with some way. For example, we could provide some reference to weak reference and use some extension to add it to our factory. But by default, there is no solution under the hood for Kotlin native. And this supports singleton, that's nice. And it supports both iOS and Android, but because everything is reifed and there is no way to get another, to use generics another way in Kotlin, we need to search some workaround for iOS. And before we will jump into Kotlin section, Pamela, are there any questions about Kotlin?
So yes, there's a couple of questions. Firstly, I'm not going to ask a question of anyone specific. There's a general not understanding about dependency injection versus service locator. Could you please explain the difference again for us?
I was expected this question. So, dependency injection is the architecture pattern that allows you to hold your dependencies correctly and provide it into your instances of different components. So, dependency injection has two functions. First, create correctly the instance with whole dependencies. And the second one is to keep existing instances and to provide them correctly. So many solutions, when we speak about native libraries, there is different ways to retrieve singletons or factory, just we have seen with Kotlin. And dependency injection library do this. Service locator is just a container. It could be a part of dependency injection solution. It's just a pattern to create some small container to keep existing instances you will put here and provide here some rules and conditions. For example, you could provide here the conditions that the instance will be stored only for several times, or you will need to recreate the instance. For example, you need to add several additional, but pure solution, service locator is just only to keep instances you will put here and resolve existing ones. So dependency injection is whole pattern architecture, and there could be different ways to implement containers And service locator is just pattern for container and nothing more.
Okay. Can you please explain what your solution was? Was it dependency injection or service locator? And what is Codeine?
Codeine, it is a framework to provide dependency injection solution, because we could see here. I will return again into my code, into DI Factory. And you could see here that on this point we create some models, and on these models we put the instance. We put not the instances, but we put here the factory to create this instance, and how to provide the dependency to this instance, and the rules how to keep this instance or to provide ones. So this is about how to create new instances, and then we could also use some mechanism, for example, in Android or in our common main part, to retrieve these dependencies lazily. In case we shouldn't have some iOS application, we could provide lazy delegates, and with lazy delegates resolve everything. And when we will speak about our configuration factory, on this point we used direct access to our dependency injection container, but we could also use lazy delegates on this point, because it is used on main part, not direct in iOS application. So it is solution to provide dependency injection. Of course, on some under this hood, there could be some kind of service locator to store some information, but mostly Kotlin, it is a complicated solution for dependency injection.
Okay. And then there were some questions about coding to an interface and coding to an implementation. So sometimes you were having saying that a variable is of a type of an implementation rather than coding to an interface. Why, and how would you suggest folks actually get away to actually code to an interface rather than coding to into an implementation?
I provided a simplified solution, but on this case, you should downcast your class when you will provide the factory to create the instance of your component. You need to cast it to your interface, and then you will retrieve it only as interface. I know several solutions that provide different ways to retrieve a class by protocol or protocol by class. But on this case, you should implement it with casting, or also this is another commands. There is a lot of different commands for Kotlin. For example, this is not only bind provider, this is also different solution. Oh, there is something commented. Different ways to implement different providers with creators, and oh, this is not here. This is also factory instruction, and with factory you need to provide several arguments, and in factory you could also specify that it could be used as interface, not class directly.
And then a last question is, so they were asking a lot about compile time dependency, compile time stuff versus runtime stuff. That you would get, for example, for Dagger and Hilt, there's a framework that generates things at compile time for you to do dependency injection. This is not doing that. So what would you say is the benefits, or what would you say is the downsides of using an approach like Codeine that is more runtime, and how would you mitigate doing?
Oh, this
how would you? How would you sort of mitigate or make it better that kind of problem that Codeine has, that it's actually kind of resolving things at runtime?
This is really nice and good question like this. The main disappointing thing in Dagger, it had to create different stubs with capped, and this is Java code, and this Java code then will be compiled with the Kotlin sources. So it seems to be like duplication of some time of during the compilation, and this is the downside of using Dagger. Dagger has a lot of benefits. It's for many Android for many Android developers. I'm sorry. This is a really convenient solution, but of course for newbies, it's not really comfortable to use Dagger. And to be honest, when I tried this framework for the first time, I respect the creators of Dagger, but it was not clear to me how to use dependencies correctly and how to provide them correctly, and injection providing, and all this mess, and I have to write a lot of different code, and it was not lightweight solution, but it is really main solution for many Android developers. Hilt for me is more lightweight solution, and I like it more when I use a small application. Kotlin is really lightweight solution for Kotlin Multiplatform, not only for Android. And I used KSP in my pet project to create some analog, another variant of Dagger with processing everything with annotations and create on runtime. And of course, it had to dig into some documentation and find some solutions, but the result is really nice. Kotlin is lightweight. There is no steps. It could be used in multi-platforms. And of course, you have to write something, but I don't think that while using Dagger, you write less code while registering all your dependencies.
Okay, I just want to share a compliment that Christopher is giving. He says, by the way, amazing job of doing all this coding 100% live. Well done, Anne.
Thank you very much.
We've got a lot of compliments coming through, but I know that everyone is waiting for the coin section, so let's get started with the coin section.
Yes, we have some time, and coin section will be more lightweight than Kotlin section. So let's begin with coin. Coin is also another solution, and this is also a lot of different documentation you can find on their site, and it's about how to use in core, how to use it with Android, with annotations, multi-platform. Unfortunately, annotations are not supported at the moment in multi-platform because it's there. I know that they will use KSP on several later releases, but not now. So there is a lot of different stuff, and we will focus on some lightweight solution to be provided in our common main part. So it's also, as Kotlin we have discussed before, support JVM, Kotlin Native, and Kotlin Multiplatform. And I like that it also uses DSL syntaxes. DSL syntax is really cool and really comfortable to use. And unfortunately, it supports scopes and context again only for Android, and they're bound to context for Android. So if you would like to create some weak references, you need to implement them by yourself as an extension. So as with Kotlin, at first we need to add dependency, and then let's set up our component with models and connect with Android and connect with iOS. Let's jump to our another testing project, and on this point we need to add all this stuff. This stuff will be added into our build Gradle KTS section in common main, and this one will be added for Android section. So in case you would like to use it also for Android main application, you could add this. For Kotlin, we could also add some solution, some libraries, but there is more libraries we have to add to Android, and of course it is not needed on this point because we will be using main solution main at all. So let's comment this and synchronize our Gradle. And while it is synchronizing, let's see what we have to do with our component. When we provided some kind of component to register our instances with Kotlin, we haven't provided any special interfaces or types for this part. But for Coin, we have to make our factory, our registration factory, as a driver of Coin component. And in this case, we also use models. And separately, we register instances for our services. And then we register our factory. It is not provider, but factory in this case. So I think it is named more clearly. And then we need to create special start coin, and on this part we need to register both our models. So let's jump into our project and create our DI for coin. So let's add here our Kotlin file, our class, and call this coin DI. And do not forget coin component. So, and let's add our models. So our service model, and this will be a model. So it shows us that it is some kind of DI model for Kotlin. So let's return into our project and remove Kotlin from there. So to make our experiment more clear. So, and now let's add our model, our service model only for coin. So, and this is our model. And let's create it just like this. It will be model. And here we will single network client. And of course, here will be our new service with some kind of injection. And let's return here at moment. There is two possible solutions to provide injection. When we need to get it directly, we have to use get. But with lazy, it will be inject. In our case, it will be get. And without any other curly braces. So it is our first model. Let's organize and optimize our code, very formatted. And let's add presenter model. And now let's add here our factory and provide here our news presenter implementation. So now let's add our start. Let's add our init. Let's start coin. Let's call this start. And then add here start coin. So this will return us coin application. So this will be the main point to our coin application. Start coin. And now let's add our imports at the list of them. So it will be our service model and our presenter model. So, and now Let's think how we will provide everything to our presenters and other kind of components. It seems it had to be some kind of factory again. So let's add our CoinDI factory. We could implement it just right here, and it would be CoinDI factory. So, and now let's add here some initialization point and provide our CoinDI. So it will be our CoinDI, and this will be our CoinDI, not component. It will be wall, it will be constant, and this CoinDI I call this CoinDI. Let's start this and add here that it is lazy by lazy. Again, CoinDI will be created just right here, and now we have created our CoinDI. So, and on this point, we have to implement something to get access to all the stuff we have provided in our dependency injection solution. So let's create here some kind of extension for this type, and it will be some kind of CoinDI factory resolve function. And let's think how we could provide our solution. So at first, we haven't provided any arguments. Now let's think. Let's see how can we get into our CoinDI dependencies. So here in our coin component, it is our coin application. We could get with getCoin command access to everything. And now let's take a look here. This is not re-IFET. Kotlin has a problem with inline generics, and these inline generics are not supported with iOS in iOS side. Of course, it is supported with Kotlin native in common main application, but when we wanted to provide our presenter without any workarounds to our controller, there were no solution. And Coin has the solution to provide the type directly. So we have to specify here the type with mentioning the class or our component, and we will provide this as argument. And at first it will be Kotlin class. So let's add here and get it with just like this. So, and at this point we have created some kind of factory that will allow us to get everything from our coin dependency injection container directly. So let's get into our presenter, and here we will have our service provided by manually as lazy solution. And let's change this into CoinDI factory and resolve as new service. And of course, it is optional. Don't forget this. And on this point, we need to specify the type. Of course, we have to use it just like this. So at this point, everything looks nice. And now let's see what's wrong at the moment. So it's also optional result. And let's jump into our Android application and turn this into coin dependency and Kotlin DI injection section. So let's provide our presenter with the same way we have do it before. So let's do this as lazy property, and of course it should be optional by lazy. And now let's use Kotlin DI Factory and resolve it as news presenter implementation and as news presenter implementation. So what's wrong? It's once news presenter implementation. Again, what's wrong with you? Oh, yes, this is silly mistake. It is war instead of this. So turn this to correct type without any casting, and of course at this point we could attach, but let's do this correctly at this moment. And at first presenter attach our view as this, and now let's load our content from our network. So, and let's jump into our application. Everything works fine and it's really fast. It seems that it could be a really fast solution. It's faster than the previous ones, and it seems they have provided really nice tweaks to memory management and to make it clear and more smooth and fast. So let's jump into our iOS application. Do not forget to open it from correct project. And now let's clean and rebuild everything, and we will get an access to our factory. On this point, it will be okay. I think so. I believe so. Not. There will be some kind of nuances, and I will show you it just right now. So it seems we have provided a really nice factory, and we have to do nothing, just to implement our lazy property and retrieve our Kotlin DI factory shared resolved with providing our news presenter implementation class as self, and to turn it and cast it into news presenter implementation. Of course, do not forget to attach this, and now turn our presenter. So, but let's see one moment. Something strange. I have casted it to my presenter. Oh, yes, it's provided self. So at this point, it's nothing strange. Strange thing will be later. But even I have provided my view as self, it is error type. So let's try to build this and to run. And this show one moment. Our news presenter implementation doesn't conform to expected type Kotlin K class. I using a type from common shared model. But as I mentioned previously, on iOS side, this type is interrupted into Objective-C and Swift type with shared preferences. There is no news presenter implementation, the shared news presenter implementation. And this type is unknown to my factory as a Kotlin class. So what should be done on this case? There is some nuances, and let's focus on the slides. So when we use Kotlin native from iOS side, it is not Kotlin classes. We working with Objective-C Objective-C classes, and this is the interrupt from these classes to Kotlin types. And to do this, to convert correctly the Objective-C class into Kotlin class, we have to use get the original Kotlin class type extension, and then we could create Kotlin class. But Kotlin class will not be created in any cases. If this type is unknown for Kotlin common main model, it will be a null class, it will be null. But if it is foundation, something from UI kit known for a common main part or types you have initiated and created in common main part, declared in common main part, you will retrieve a correct Kotlin class. So your custom iOS application classes are unknown for Kotlin. Just remember this. And of course, because of this, there is no direct interop. So if you haven't provided the type in your common main and there is no interop, you will not get correctly your iOS class casted to Kotlin class. So to avoid this, let's add some factories and do this in our iOS main part of our common shared model. Let's create extensions. So this is the job for this model of our project. So add here. So let's focus that on the structure of our common main model. So we need to provide here the directory di, and on this new package we will implement our class or file. We call it di extension, and now so I will show you that on this point we have same package we have used before. So now let's add our extension. So it will be also generic extension, and let's add here resolved class with Objective-C class. And do not forget, it is not only a method, it is coin di factory extension, and it will return us the optional as a result. And on this point, we need to implement our correct solution to get original type. So let's add another extension function. And now coin di factory and create type by our class Objective-C class, and it will be Kotlin class. And of course it will be optional because there is no guarantee we will get result. And return get original Kotlin class, and with this. So, and do not forget to cast it to Kotlin class T. So everything looks okay. And now let's join here. So on our previous method, we used this kind of solution. So we could call our resolved class method and there will be no error on this point because it's on common main solution. So at first, let's create our let's call this K class, and this K class will be K class. This will be get original Kotlin class with this class, and if K class is not null, we will call turn our resolve methods with K class. And another way there will be null. So, and this is solution. So let's save. Let's command this code and clean and rebuild. And time is running, but we have just implemented everything. There is some small nuances. And now let's jump here and remove this code and call Kotlin Factory shared and resolve. And this is not correct method, but this is our one. So this is any class. And let's put here our news presenter implementation self. And do not forget to test it to our type and run it. And do not forget to call this. Yes, and what's going on here? Where is everything? So let's try again. Attention. Oh, yes, it was a run project. So, and on this point, something has, oh, this is another solution, and let's take a look what's going on here and run it again. So let's, yes, on this point there is no call of our load news. It seems I have to make some other names, to give out other names to my projects. And or this means that Koi and I don't want to say goodbye to us. So as with Android, CoinDI retrieved everything really smooth and nice. So that's really nice working solution. And of course it's a working solution, but let's think that we could implement it more sophisticated with using some kinds of configuration. Let's add it into our common main part and add our configurator, and let's copy our solution from previous project. So let's jump into our config section. Where is? Here. And let's copy, jump here, and let's just change the call for our DI factory just like this, coin DI factory, and resolve our news present implementation class. So this is the way we have implemented this. And this is really smooth tweak and switching from one solution to another. What could be done also? Of course, we could of course, on our side, this code looks not really nice. There is too much code, and this looks not really beautiful. So let's also rebuild and change this to call of our configurator factory. So let's mention that this is perfect solution to be used to retrieve some types of Swift classes known for Kotlin Multiplatform directly. But let's change this to this. Center and configurator, config factory, shared, and create view by self as news presenter implementation. So really nice. And it will be also working solution. Let's hide all this stuff into property wrappers component. So do not spend too much time. I have prepared some kind of property wrapper, and I will add this one into my iOS project, Coin Start, and I will show you and explain what will be done with this property wrapper. So let's add property wrapper called inject. Yes, injected property wrapper. I have copied another one. So let's copy this and let's add this. So of course we have to provide coin DI factory and shared as instance, and do not forget to import shared. So let's take a look what's going on here. So change our type and everything is okay. So it is property wrapper. It is a standard mechanism provided for iOS since iOS 13 to make some injections into code. And it is mainly used for Swift UI, but it could be also used with UI kit applications. So in many cases. What is done here? So this is used to provide and inject new instance of our service or presenter, anything that could be retrieved from our DI factory directly. So in this case, it is such solution, and we could just command this and use our property wrapper inject presenter and just use correct type to retrieve from our coin DI factory. And let's call this. And now it is not working because I haven't attached everything. But if I will attach my view itself, it is not Kotlin. And let's run again. And on this point, everything works okay, and it looks really nice, and it is in iOS smooth style. For Kotlin, we could also, for Android, make some such tricks, just like this. So let's add here some delegated property. We will call presenters. And this is on this is correct project, and it will implement read-only property that will return us our presenter. So let's take a look at my sugar. It's only property with any, and for some kind of tea. And this will be used for tea and any. Of course, we could specify that presenters should be derived from presenter, and it is really possible. But presenter is not any. So let's say this just like this. So let's implement get value, and on this point, just add some private property, make it working correctly. For example, let's add this just like a weak reference, and this will be a weak reference to our T. And now, if our weak reference is not null, we could return something, but let's remember that our presenter had to be created every time. So on this point, let's return coin DI factory and resolve our class as T class, as T. Oh, let's not, this is not T class, but T class Java. No, it needs to be Kotlin class. So let's put here our class for Kotlin K class. If you would like to stay such solution and you want to spend the time to make something more convenient. And now let's provide our class as class. So let's add our class and take look why it is what is something problematic here. Well, class, and why it is not imported. So, I have forgotten to issue. It had to be in Android main part. Shame for me. So let's move this into our Android main and change everything. So on this point, K classes don't want to be supported at all, or it's not really good moment. So let's see how have I this implemented at the moment. So I think that Coin wants us to spend here more time. Let's copy this and try to put everything. So Coin Factory, that's the wrong name. And of course it is resolve. And why it is not visible? Come on, work. One moment. So. So let's. That's really strange. Why it is not implemented at all? So even it is known for this part slow. Let's turn this into this. So it will be working solution. And let's change this. On this point, quick references is not working, but I don't need any quick references. So small problem with our factory. So let's fix it. One moment. So even on this point, K class is supported correctly. On this one, it don't want to work correctly. So yes, I think my Android Studio is tied at all. And I think me is also tied. So let's add presenter here by presenters. So even it is on our common main part, it will not work with iOS because iOS is not supported lazy delegate properties. So, and on this point, everything will be working okay when we will attach our views. So let's hide everything and let's focus on our presenter. If it is existed one, and let's call our debugging. It is also some problems at the end. And at this point, our presenter already existed, and present attach view also existed, and present load news. And let's focus our content. So here, and let's return to our build section, and where is our debugging? And jump here. Something lost on this moment. So there is too much sugar, I think so. So let's take a look here again and test this. So on this point, we have our new service and our result. So let's check what's happened with our API. And we have our result and view result is null, and that's look really strange. Why on this point there is no attaching? So I think that our project is really tight. Or it's too much sugar and it wants to work with DI Factory directly. So there were too much sugar in our case. So let's summarize our coin. It is also 15 minutes plus to our webinar time. So as coding, it provides for a safe solution and memory management. Thanks to Kotlin version 1.7.20. And also it supports singletons, and also it supports different scopes for Android and phobic references if we would like to use them in our application. And also it supports both iOS and Android. And I think with this solution that provides us more interesting experience of using generics with iOS, it's more flexible with it. And it's really smooth and fast when we retrieve our dependencies. So, and now let's see if there are any questions about Kotlin.
Hi, Anna. All right. So at the moment, there isn't any questions about Coin specifically, but people are dying to know what you think about the DI library Kotlin Inject. Have you played with it? What do you think about it? Have you read about it before?
Kotlin Inject, they mean that it is some kind of library that use KSP and provide some kind of injection in Dagger style. If it is this part of library, I have inspected it while I was making my own dependency injection solution, and I found that it's really interesting. Of course, when we compare this with Dagger is more complex solution, and a lot of people, different developers work to provide different functionality to Dagger. I know that after Kotlin has created their own playground for KSP, they inspired many people to use their basic solution to provide their own dependency injection based on KSP and injection annotations. So, and that is why I know that Kotlin developed this type. Well, Kotlin Inject, it's really nice solution and it still develops. So I think that we need to provide more such solutions at all. And also this intersects with the next section with small talk about own solution.
Okay. And then somebody was just asking if you know anything about dependency injection for the JS platform. This isn't exactly on topic for us today, but maybe if you just know something, yes or no.
Really nice.
Kotlin yeah. Go ahead.
I practiced this year with plugins, Kotlin compiler as an alternative solution to make injection when use on dependency injection solution. And at first I investigated really nice sample by Bjorn. That's a really cool sample, and it was some code for GS. And at first my idea was to provide generics directly on this compiler part, and I was surprised by that this kind of generics and reflection was not supported with JS. So I found that there is some problems with reflection, and this is all I have investigated about dependency injection with JS. So I think that, of course, there could be some solution, but of course, we need to think about different nuances of work with this target.
Okay. I just want to convey another compliment. 2 hours of live coding is really tough. Thank you for your effort. You've got this. Okay, let's get going, Anna. What's next?
So, and finally, I would like to mention about own solution. So, ready-made solution, of course, it's really cool. And of course, we could take Kotlin and Coin, their line on GitHub, and to add something and to make some kind of our fork. Or maybe if this fork will be successful, we could also recommend this fork as some pull requests for developers of calling on coding and to become contributor. Of course, we could add some tweaks, for example, as we have used for iOS, and I mentioned about weak reference tricks. Unfortunately, not weak reference. Weak reference tricks don't want to work with property delegated property. So, but of course, we could create our own solution with different ways. So, I would like to mention only my own library. It is library that it is dependency injection, but with service locator on core. And it uses several mechanisms of registration, different types of components, and holds and reference holds not only factory and the type, but also information about the scope and the rules how to create this moment. Of course, there are a lot of point of developing, and I'm tweaking it with the KSP, compiler plugins, and DSL syntaxes. But you could find some version of my library and to investigate by if you have an interest. And of course, I think that it is not the most awesome library in the world, but I hope it will inspire someone to use your own solution or to develop your own solution. So that is all, and thanks for listening. And if there are any other questions, I'm also ready.
Okay, there's only one more question. So Nick asks, you went through two solutions, that was Coin and Codeine, that are quite similar. Which one do you prefer and why?
That's really nice question. As for me, they're really both nice solution, but I found for myself that Coin is more flexible solution for iOS because it allows to create your own factory and resolve the types directly. So that means that I could create my own dependency injection solution and provide this from my iOS side, and to make some kind of dependency injection that will be not only for common main part, but also for my iOS part. And this will be a basis. So it could be a basis for me. Coding is also nice, but it needs some workarounds as configurator. But if we will use it only in common main part, I think there is no big difference with this. Both libraries has a lot of different tweaks, different ways to create instances, to provide dependencies, and to keep them. And I think that both libraries also has some moments that could be developed as providing big references from under the hood without any workarounds.
Amazing, thank you. Any other questions, folks? Please drop it in your comment section. It seems like there was a poll run and people are asked, the question was, what are you going to use for your next Kotlin Multiplatform Mobile project? And the answer was with a resounding 80% almost, it was Coin. So that's really cool. Thanks, Kate, for running that poll. Let me just get back to my my StreamYard. Anna, thank you so much for your time. You were absolute champion doing live coding for almost 2 hours. We're all in awe. I just wanted to say thank you for all your effort and making this happen. You're amazing. Thank you. This is all for us tonight, folks. I hope you had a great time with us. We will be hosting more webinars later in the year, so keep an eye out for the announcements. But for now, have a nice Kotlin and goodbye.
Thanks, Pamela. Have a nice day, everyone, or nice week, or nice evening, or maybe night.
Bye.